had a good start to their week. Mondays always suck, but Mondays are what they are, So anyway, talk today is going to be about how to make it. Like how do you get to be successful in life and not be super intelligent, right? What do you do if you didn't walk the path, right? You didn't do the everything correctly, which a lot of people don't do. How do you make it, from whatever being a normal person to then getting to be something else later in life. And I hear people talking about well you need to go to college, or you need to get an inheritance, and you need to come up with a business, start an idea, you need to do all these things. Everyone has an idea, and then you got the people that talk about being successful after having a stint with drugs, or maybe they had a stint with alcohol. I was 10 years drunk, and I used to beat my wife, lost my family, and then I figured it out. And there's these stories of inspiration, and that's cool and all. I think it's fantastic, and everyone kind of has their story. But what I think the way to be successful is not to do any of that stuff, right? It's to just work really hard and get really good at something, right? And if you can do that, opportunities just present themselves, right? I'll talk a little bit about like kind of what I mean. But the secret is the simplest of things. And I don't hear enough people talking about the basics of what it takes to actually get to be where it is you want to be in life. And you don't know when you're young, but when you get a little bit older in life, if you do the things that I'm talking about, it works. It really works. And the reason I would tell people like you would want to listen to someone like myself is because I never graduated high school. I wasn't an academic. I didn't follow the path. I was told to go to school numerous times. I never did. It just wasn't something that really appealed to me. I always was more of a worker. I wasn't someone who wanted to, stick his head in books and do equations and stuff like that. I just liked making things. I liked seeing things come together in front of me. And that's the thing that really worked for me. And everyone's gonna be different. Everyone's gonna have their own thing, and it's gonna be up to you what it is that you want to do. But you gotta figure it out when you're young, and you gotta work at it. And it takes, they say 10,000 hours, but really it takes like 40,000 hours to get really really good at something. So good that you can become undeniable at it, right? Which means that everyone around you recognizes that you're the authority in that particular issue, at least within your circle. So what is the recipe? Like, I'm gonna tell you guys the recipe. I'm gonna give you all this stuff. So Christopher's in here. Christopher, good to see you, dude. I'm gonna give you guys the recipe according to the guy that never graduated high school, that had to move around a bunch, that started in Oregon, ended up in St. Louis, and has a small business. We make furniture. Tell you about myself. My name is Eric Wilk, and I own the Splendid Crow here in St. Louis, Missouri. We have about 8 employees. We do a small 7 figures in revenue. We make about 500-ish pieces of furniture, and we're always working on our business. And how do you do that? How do you do that as someone that never had the path? How do you do that as someone who was always told to go to college and never did? Like, how do you do that when, like, I don't have a story of being drunk for 10 years and then figured it out. I have a story of, I did drugs forever and slept with my cousin. Like, and none of that stuff applies here. Like, the equation to life it's kind of undramatic, to be quite honest with you. So here's the recipe, guys. Here's all you really need to do if you want to make it in life. And again, feel free to disagree with it, but this is my personal secret. So more people coming in. Who is this? We got Tiny Tack Gaming in here. Good to see you, dude. Glad you're here. You guys hit the like button after the discussion. If you can, hit the like button. Like I said, well, I'll go back and forth with you guys. You guys can tell me what you think the success is. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where I'm right. And we'll kind of bat this thing back and forth. Let me go through my spiel real quick, and I'll go through more comments. We'll say hi and all that kind of fun stuff. Just my wife made me margarita here. All right, so here's the secret, guys. The secret to making life is to be interested, right? And like, that sounds super simplistic, okay? Here's some examples. So what I believe the way to make it in life today, especially today, right? We know that AI is kind of crushing white collar jobs. Colleges aren't as important as they used to be, right? So the thing that people are starting to realize is that you need to work with your hands, you need to make things, you need to do things that are tangible, right? This knowledge work just isn't as lucrative as it used to be, right? So if you're one of the people that when you go to work, right, you show up every day, you show up on time, right? And again, this is the basics. And again, I'm not telling you guys anything new here, but you need to be interested, okay? You do this every day, right? So you do this every day, you're gonna be the person that's interested, right? So that means when you come into work, the boss says, oh man, Eric's showing up to work. I can give him things to do. I can ask him to do things, and he's not going to give me shit. He's not going to give me a poor attitude, and oh yeah, and he's going to be here on time. right? So this happens, and it doesn't happen right away. Like it takes months, it could even take years, right? But you start doing this kind of stuff, and eventually the boss notices, yeah, I can go talk to Eric. Eric's gonna do this thing for me, and I can have him do this bitch work because I don't want to ask anybody else. And yeah, it kind of sucks, but I know Eric's gonna do it, right? Well, eventually what that turns into is that turns into where the boss is asking you not only do the crap work and the stuff he doesn't want to ask the other guys to do because they kind of have a piss poor attitude about certain kinds of work. It turned into like, well, hey, I got this opportunity to do this fun work, right? You do start doing the fun work, then Eric's getting the opportunity to do the fun shit, okay? Now, I'm gonna give you guys some quick examples here on how exactly this worked for me kind of growing up. And again, I couldn't make it through high school, guys. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't listen to the teachers. I just couldn't play the social games that you have to play in high school and stuff like that. It just wasn't for me for whatever reason. But here's how it worked for me. So I go to work for a company in Wichita, Kansas, an aerospace company, and I'm just another furniture maker, right? I had laminate experience. I knew how to work with laminate. So the guys are like, yeah, let's hire this guy. They hired me in from a company called Baumhoff. So I go there, I go to work, and I'm just making things, and I'm kind of learning. I'm taking in all the knowledge. They had me buy some tools, so I bought the tools I needed to buy. And I'm taking in all this knowledge, and I'm starting to, bend laminate and starting to work with composites and like honeycomb sandwich panels. This is all aerospace, really lightweight types of materials. And anytime they would need something built, right, or they need to, they'd volunteer someone to empty dustbins, take out the wood bins, like all this kind of crap work, to be honest with you. Like I just like, yeah, I'll do it, right? And sometimes you got to stay over like 15, 30 minutes to do it, so you get a little bit of overtime money, So it just started where I'd volunteer for all these things. Hey, Eric, we need someone to go stack all the laminate, or we need someone to go do inventory. And so it just started where I would just volunteer for all these what I think are kind of crap projects, to be honest with you. But the idea was I was just kind of learning. I wanted to be the person that was always around volunteering for everything because I knew that if I kept doing that, it would give me more opportunities. I don't think I just wanted money, but at the end of the day, it turned into more opportunities, right? So then, I'm around working on these projects. Well, then suddenly the higher ups, the leads and people like that are saying, hey, Eric, you want to come over here, help us out with this project. We're working on this project in engineering. You're here, let's work on this project, and so I'd start helping these other people design things, and I get to kind of work in engineering on, and again, mind you, I knew none of what I was working on, but I just got to kind of dip my toe in the water of what these guys were doing, and suddenly it was like, okay, well, Eric's already working on this project for whatever, Boeing or something like that, and so here, let's have him help, Bob over here, and he's gonna help Bob work on this project for Boeing, and then it turns into where you're doing that kind of work full time. So I started out, just working for this company with almost no knowledge. I just had, remember, laminate experience. That's really all I had. But it turned into where I was making, Jeppesen cases. I was making divan cabinets to where I was making credenzas and maybe side ledges for private jets. And then that turned into where I was doing R&D projects, where I'm starting to do sheet metal work and learn about, working with CAD programs like AutoCAD, SolidWorks. And because I kept saying yes, and I kept saying, oh yeah, I'll do that. When they would say, Eric, can you come in early? Can you stay late? I just kept doing this stuff. And it turned into where 11 years later, I was the guy, right? I was the guy that would make anything, that could make anything, okay? And here's another thing, guys. And I kind of gave you the quick down and dirty of what that led to, but I'm going to tell you guys the major opportunities that happened within that same company. Okay, so let's go through comments real quick. Excuse me. Say hi to everyone here. Okay, so we said hi to Chris. We said hi to TikTok Gaming. Who else we got in here? We got, let's see, who's this? Fursy5? Good to see you. Glad. God bless you too. Take more Chris. Stop talking, play Sab. I don't know what SAB means, but anyway, okay, Chris got some goofy. Okay, no, I hate you. Okay, good. All right, Christopher, well, that's cool. And then we got, who's this? Galsung Kanal. Okay, cool. So continue on here. I'll tell you guys more interesting information. And again, this is just my story, guys. Like I tell this kind of stuff to people because, again, I want people to understand that you don't have to walk the path, right? You don't have to do everything right. You go from this point to this point to this point to this point to this point, and you got to figure it out. It doesn't quite work like that. But so anyway, so I got all these opportunities because, again, I would just show up all the time. I'd volunteer for everything. I'd stay late. I'd come in early, whatever they needed done. Well, it turned into I got this opportunity they needed somebody who was a builder, right? And I was a pretty good builder of aerospace furniture, right? All kinds of cabinets, right? Just whatever you need to build. they needed someone to be in the engineering department, right? And so what happened was they opened up a position. They created a position for what they called an engineering liaison, right? And this is basically, this is a furniture maker, right? Someone that knows how to work with all the different veneers and laminates and hardwoods, composite panels, and Kevlar, carbon fiber, sheet metal. Understands tempering, understands bend radiuses, all this kind of knowledge that I acquired all this time. They're like, we need you to talk to engineering to help them to kind of come up with ways to design this furniture, right? So when they would put bids out for companies like Honda Jet, or at the time it was Hawker Beechcraft, they would use me to kind of help, to identify materials, look for specs, all this kind of stuff. Well, what happened is when I was doing this job, suddenly it was like, well, hey, you know what? Now we need someone in engineering. We actually need to open up another job. And so they're like, well, hey, Eric, why don't you come in here and do this engineering work for a while? And so they brought me in there. And again, this all stemmed from a guy that just knew how to work with laminate, but again, always showed up. I was always there, whether they need me to stay late, whether they need me to come in early, whether it was volunteer to clean toilets, whether it was taking out, dustbins, all the bitch work, doing, like I said, doing inventory, like just horrible work, guys. But doing all this work. And so they opened up a position in engineering specifically for me, and they taught me how to work with SolidWorks and AutoCAD, and they showed me how to, design wire bundles and electronic connector pieces and design aerospace furniture, and it was really cool. I learned a lot of really neat stuff in there, and what that led into was that they needed somebody in planning. So we had a whole planning department. So basically the way it works in manufacturing is that when the customer, writes a purchase order, they want to buy something, it's not like we just send it out to the builder and the builder, is I'm going to go get this and I'm going to go get that, and then puts all the pieces together and starts building something. What it does is they send that purchase order to planning. Well, then planning puts together a bill of materials. They then order, they send out all their purchase orders, everything gets purchased. Then when everything starts coming in, they send the work to the fabricator. The fabricator then would start building. And that's basically how manufacturing really works. There's a lot of lead times and planning that goes into making production work correctly. So they opened a position in planning for me. And so what I started doing is I started going through all of the bill of materials, which are on every drawing and every purchase order that we would have there. And I would then go ahead and I would organize all of these bill of materials. I would go in and I would update all the pricing, right? Because I didn't do that. So I'd be calling up vendors. I'd be going through audits, right? So companies that we were going to do business, or excuse me, companies that we were doing business with, they would come every year, every other year, they would want to do some kind of an audit. So I became the guy that would go through the bill of materials, would pull up invoices from all the vendors that we were buying shit from, and we would go through and see exactly how many of this we need. Okay, what did we say we were going to charge? What did it actually cost? Where are the receipts? And so I started learning about engineering and about planning, and this all led into learning about the way that manufacturing really works. And it all started from just showing up on time every single day. And you guys will always hear, everyone says, well, that's what I do. I do the same thing. And I'm here to tell you guys that most people don't. They think they do, but they really don't. Like it's much more difficult to be consistent for 10 years than people think. And I've looked at hundreds of resumes at this point, and most people just have way too many jobs to have been that consistent for that long. So the recipe to getting where you want to be in life is showing up. It's doing the work every day, volunteering for everything, and being the person that is interested in doing whatever needs to be done, right? And it creates almost like a symbiotic relationship, right? You're getting skills, knowledge, paycheck, right, from the employer, but then the employer is getting someone who's going to do the work. But not only someone's going to do the work, the employer gets someone who's interested in doing the work, right? And that's more exciting to an employer than anything. Like I think the employee thinks that it's like, well, it's my boss's job to make a good environment to work in. It's my employer's job to make sure that the work that I do is fun. And I'm here to tell you guys, like, that's not true. But what employers really like is they love it when employees like their work. They love when employees come in and are able to do a job, even if it kind of sucks, and make it fun, right? And then what happens is eventually the people that want to work around you become like you in a way. They want to have a good time. They enjoy doing whatever the projects are that you're working on. They really start to like this guys, and this kind of thing builds on itself, But then you have the other people, right? You got the other people they're super negative. They think everyone's out to screw them, and they're constantly bitching. And then you get those group of people around them. And employers know who these people are. Like all of us that own companies, we know what our employees talk about. We know the like the vibe in every department within our companies. Like it's very easy to tell what's going on, and I don't think employees kind of understand it, you know. So at the end of the day, the secret is just to show up, guys, to be consistent for a very long time and to get really good at what it is that you do. And if you do that, right, the things I've told you to do, if you just show up, be there on time, come in early, stay late, volunteer for every project, you will get a lot of swings as the best opportunities, the most opportunities. And you're gonna have to do the shitty things, but it will lead to the really good things. And that's really all you guys gotta do. And again, as someone who's looked at hundreds of resumes in my life, like I can tell you, most people don't do that. You know, you got people in their 30s, they've had 6 or 7 jobs, you know, and that's just too many. You know, if you're you know, in your 30s, you never went to college. I mean, if you got more than 3 jobs, I mean, that's too many, guys. That means that you're not that person. That means that your job is not very interesting to you, right? You're not really captivated by what it is that you do. And everyone will say, well, I wasn't treated well, I wasn't paid well. And I'm here to tell you guys, like, there's some of that, no doubt about it. But ultimately, it comes down to your attitude, you know, and how you want to project yourself in the place that you work, how you want to, you know, show yourself in the place that you work, you know. So it's just super important that people kind of understand that stuff, that you need to be consistent all day, every day for a decade, you know, at least 7 years, and be the person that volunteers for everything. Like it has taken me so far in my life. And again, I hear all these motivational people talking about just how messed up their lives were and how they just completely ruined their lives with the drugs and the alcohol and all this kind of stuff. And I never did any of that. I never was a druggie. I was never a drinker. I was never a smoker. I never did any of that shit. I was just a workaholic that liked to make furniture. I love making furniture, and I love being the person that got recognized. I love being that person that would get asked to do everything, whether it was a good job or a bad job. It didn't frickin' matter to me. Just volunteering for everything and being that employee that your employer can count on for everything. You know, and people say, oh, the employer didn't pay me enough money. The employer didn't compensate me. I was doing 3 or 4 people's jobs. It's like, no shit. You're supposed to do that. That's what leads to you getting to be the boss, right? That's what leads to you getting the opportunities to work on the cool projects or go on the cool business trips or go and, you know, talk to the best clients. That's what that stuff leads to. And I don't hear enough people talk about that. You know, everybody just wants to cry about, you know, how they didn't get what they deserved and it's not fair and this person fucked me over and that person fucked me over. And I don't see it that way, guys. Like I never saw that in my career. And again, never went to college, never did the high school thing, never did anything. Just wanted to work and be useful, right? There's that freaking line from that, what's that television series on HBO? It's like something wolves, like we came as wolves or we are wolves or something like that. And that's the guy's like, I just want to be useful, you know? And like that's been my attitude. Like I just wanted to be the guy that got to do everything, or at least got the option to do everything, good or bad, didn't really matter. But what happens is when you get to do that stuff, you get to develop your skills so much faster than everybody else, and then you can have your pick of whatever it is you want to do, you know. And I think that's the message, guys. Like, and especially if we're transitioning from a knowledge-based economy to, you know, a physical-based economy where we're actually having to make things, we actually have to, you know, do stuff that other people look at every single day. We got to look at what we did and go like, oh God, did I do a good job or is this a piece of shit, right? You know. That's really important. If that's what we're coming to, like, you're going to want to be the person that shows up every day. You're going to be one of the person that volunteers for everything. You're one of the person that stays late, that, you know, that you're going to want to be the person that oh yeah, he's just the boss's bitch. He's going to go blow the boss after work. You want to be that person, right? Because what that means is you're getting the swings at life. You're going to get the swings of the great opportunities. And that's it, guys. Like that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's all. That's it. There's no secret sauce. There's no, you know, knowing the boss, you know, there's no, you know, special this, special that, luck. It's not luck. Luck comes from working really hard. You know, it wasn't Mark Twain that said the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's very true. You know, and so that's the message I want to send you guys in this particular talk, is that it's not what your education is. It's not, you know, who you know. It's not any of those things. It's literally, how often are you there? Are you undeniable? You know, if the boss looks up, you know, asks for help, you know, 20 or 30 times, right, and you're there 90% of the time, like how hard is it for you to imagine that the boss is then going to be like, okay, well, there's fucking Eric, he's always here. Why don't I ask him to go do this other job. Hey, Eric, you go on this job to this person's house and go deliver this furniture, right? And, well, I could say, well, I'm not a furniture maker. I don't want to deliver stuff. It's heavy. I don't want to be in someone's house. I'm uncomfortable. Like, no, you just go do it. Like, go volunteer for it. Hey, I need someone to, go learn how to paint this week. I need someone to learn how to paint really fast. I'm going to give you a crash course, and you're going to have to learn how to paint this thing. Again, most people will be like, no, I don't want that pressure. I don't want to deal with that. And, oh, yeah, you got to come on Sunday. I don't want that either. Like, I got things to do. That's my time. Volunteer for those things. And again, it's going to suck in the beginning. Like, it's not great. Get, 4 or 5 years of doing that with the same employer, guys, the same employer. Don't bounce from job to job to job to job to job. I hear this all the time. Like, don't bounce from job to job. Like, stop chasing the money. Like, you need to chase the opportunity, and it's really important that you stay with the same employer. Now, if you think your employer is no good and there's nothing there, it's never going to work, and you don't know what you're doing there, it's just a paycheck, that's on you. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I got no answers for that. Go find another job and then do what I'm telling you to do. But you can't bounce from job to job to job to job to job, because as an employer, right, someone that hires people, if I see a guy who's got 6 or 7 jobs in the last 3 or 4 years, like, that's no good, guys. Like, it's just. It means that person can't find a good employer, or that employee is not a good employee, and that's, this is the cold, hard reality. I know a lot of people might not like to hear that kind of stuff, but it's just the truth. So some of the other things that volunteering and being the kind of the go-to person for anything, good or bad, was, I've gotten to take trips to, big trips to like New Zealand for months. I got to live in New Zealand for a long time, which is really cool. I've got to go to all the cool business hangars, a lot of cool business hangars in America, hang out all the private jets. One of the cool things about getting to go to a lot of these different really big company places is that they treat you like one of them, which is really nice. They're super appreciative of having you there, right? So like when you go to Coca-Cola's headquarters in Atlanta, where they keep their jets, right? They treat you like a Coca-Cola employee, almost like you're royalty there. They're showering you with whatever it is you want. You want to go out to dinner, they'll take you out to dinner. You want, you got every freaking Coke product you could ever possibly want at your disposal. I mean, it's awesome. You just walk in, there's Monsters and Cokes and chips and everything they sell. It's all there, and you have as much of it as you want. And again, they pay for everything. It's a really cool experience. If you go out to you go to the sports teams are very similar. They take care of the people that are working on their jets. They really are super happy to know that you're there taking care of them, and then they take care of you. And again, these are just opportunities that show up when you're the person that constantly volunteers for everything, that wants the shit work as well as the good work. And it's given me all these skills that I have today, just volunteering for work. And again, I'm 46 years old. I've really only worked for, let's see here, there would be Global Engineering, Nordam, Gulfstream. So I've worked for basically 3 companies my entire life. I did have one short stint at a company called Westar Aviation, but for the most part, that's all I've done. 3 companies. I'm 46 years old, so it's not that the employers are all bad guys. It's just that I don't think enough people stick around and volunteer and do the things that I'm talking about, the basics, the elementary stuff, and prove to an employer that you're indispensable. Like, this company cannot run without you. And, that's my message today, So again, this topic is probably not super popular because I talk more about woodworking and small business, but I was listening to people talk today about the motivation that they have from watching people who have completely destroyed their lives come back to some mediocre thing. And I'm telling you guys, you don't have to destroy your life to lead a really good, successful life. You can just do the things that I'm telling you about. Show up on time. Volunteer for everything. Be the guy that comes in early. Be the guy that shows up late, right? Be the guy that volunteers for trips. Be the guy that, volunteers to wash the boss's car if you have. Like, it doesn't matter. Take out the wood bins, go get the office supplies. Do the counting and all the bitch work that has to be done. Volunteer for that stuff, because when they need someone to do a real job, like I said, like going to be a liaison engineer, right? Moving into engineering and learning how to design interior components, learning how to use different kinds of CAD programs, being the guy that handles audits and works on bombs for cabinets, right? Bill of materials, works on all these kind of fun things, right? Being the guy that travels around to take care of customers' jets, to take care of customers' needs, whatever it might be, getting to have all the fun, the corporate credit cards and, staying in the nice hotels and all that fun stuff. It starts with the bitch work and it starts with the basics. And that's the message that I don't hear people talk about that much because for whatever reason it doesn't play very well. It's not sexy, right? It's not I think what most people think success. Most people think is you go to high school, you get the 4.0 GPA, and you go to college, you get the 4.0, you become summa cum laude or whatever the hell they call that, and then you go get some $200,000 a year job and you ride off into the sunset, and I know a lot of people that have done that, and it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for a lot of people, unfortunately. And I'm here to tell you that, if you're one of these people like me who didn't want to go to high school, wasn't interested in college, couldn't sit down in a classroom long enough to listen to someone, dictate everything to me, like, there is another way, and that's my message for today. And so I hope everyone has a good Monday, and we'll put out something else again later this week, probably. So have a good night.